Okay, well, let's take this equation. So let's say we have I'm going to stick with 11. Okay. Okay, and it's not equal, it's less than or equal. Well, this is very straightforward. There's no big trick to it. Now you're going to get very quickly, you subtract 7 from both sides, you get 4x equals 4. Divide both sides, and it's not equal, it's less than or equal, so don't do like I do. Make sure you write down the inequality correctly. And then you get 4x over 4 is less than or equal to 4 over 4. So x is less than or equal to 4. And you can graph this solution on the number line. If this is 0, and this is, well, that'd be negative 4. We don't really need negative 4. We've got 4 here. Then the solution would be all the numbers that are less than or equal to 4. Closed dot means it could be equal to 4, right? And the arrow indicates all numbers less than or equal to 4. In interval notation, the solution set is the interval from negative infinity to 4, including 4. And of course, negative infinity is not a number, so you can't include it. It just means it includes all numbers less than or equal to 4. Okay? Yeah.
Would it not be 1 since you're doing 4 over 4?
Telling me I can't do arithmetic? Yes, it would be. So, just fix that. I was just testing to see if everybody was paying attention. So it's what I told you. Sometimes I'll get round up in my explanation of what I'm going to do next. And I'll write something down completely ignorant. Okay? Obviously, 4 over 4 is 1. So if I confused anybody by dividing that and getting 4, well, it should be obvious. So that should be 1. And this should be 1. Thank you. Okay. What I've got to do is give everybody big signs you can write out. Hey, that's 1. Everybody hold up the sign. Okay. Well, there it is. Right. All right. Now, I need a little more board space here. So. The second question is much like the first. Let's say it's 7 times x minus 4 is greater than 11. Then on the left-hand side, you use the distributive law. You get 7x minus 28 is greater than 11. So that, and I'm going to skip a step here, 7x is then greater, you've got to add 28 to both sides, you're going to get 39. So that x is greater than 39 over 7. And of course that equals 5 4/7 if you want to locate it on the number line. Okay? It's a very good idea when you solve these to, I don't know that open math asks you to do that because it would let me see your work. But I expect they probably ask you to, do they ask you to graph some of the solutions? Yeah. Seems like a no-brainer, yeah. And since I designed these problem sets, I would think that I would have included that, okay? If I didn't, and I'm not all that happy with what I did. Okay, let's be careful. Over here. Okay, here is 5, and here's 6. 4 sevenths is pretty close, halfway between 5 and 6. A little closer to 6. Maybe I did it that way, maybe not. And then here's a graph of our solution set. And in interval notation, it's the open interval from 39/7 to infinity. Open dot for the greater than, because it's not greater than or equal. It can't be equal to 5 4/7. So the coordinate here is 5 4/7. Or 39/7. 39/7 is fine here. 39/7 is fine here, but if you're graphing it, of course, you kind of need the mixed number. And do not go to your calculator and do a decimal approximation. Okay? Thanks. Do the fractions. You need to be good with fractions to do pre-calculus, okay? Because you're going to have to do fractions with stuff you can't imagine at this point. But by the end of this course, hopefully you'll be able to do it. Okay. That way you can focus on the real mathematics and not just the algebra. Okay, well anyhow, now there's a twist on this last one. So let's say it's 4 times 11 minus x greater than or equal to 7. Let's just switch numbers up a little bit. Well, that's easy. You get 44 minus 4x is greater than or equal to 7. Subtract 44 from both sides, you get negative 4x is greater than or equal to negative 37. Okay? Then you divide both sides by negative 4. And you divide this one by, well, both sides. Okay. This side and this side. And what's the inequality going to be? Going to be greater than or equal, or is it going to be less than or equal? How many think it's going to be greater than or equal? How many think it's going to be less than or equal? Okay, how many aren't sure? Well, when you divide or multiply by a negative on an inequality, you've got to reverse the inequality. Okay? That's a big deal. Something else you want to make prominent note of so you don't forget it. Okay? Now everybody is doing those things right, except that not everybody is splitting absolute value inequalities or equations into 2. Okay? And not everybody is reversing the sign when they multiply or divide by a negative. Those two things. If you do those two things, and always remember to do those two things, and you're not going to always remember unless you make a prominent note of it, or keep making the mistake and get wrong answers, which is kind of a hassle. Anyhow, you really got to remember these things. And the aid to remembering is to write yourself notes in a place where you will know to look for them. My son-in-law in Texas just had his PhD qualifying exams in computer science. He's a very tough rigorous course. Not one person in 100 could do it. Okay? And I asked my daughter, well, was he over-prepared? Because he nailed it, okay? And she said, well, he had hundreds of pages of notes with indexes, tables of contents. He basically wrote himself a textbook on computer science, okay? At the postmaster's degree level. He's got a master's degree, got it years and years ago. He's got patents from the 90s, okay? Smart guy. And she said, he didn't think he was over-prepared. He thought he was just well-prepared. I said, sounds over-prepared to me, but that's a good thing, okay? So, you know, if a guy that smart and that accomplished needs to write himself a bunch of notes, so do you, okay? Try to organize your notes. It's hard to do. It's not something you're going to be very good at the first time you try, but it's a habit that will enhance everything you do from now on in mathematics, and you'll get better and better at it. If you can't quickly find a reference for how you do this, and your own reference, if you don't write it out, you're not going to internalize it. Doesn't mean if you do write it out, you will internalize it, but you'll come a lot closer to internalizing it, okay? Make it your own. Don't just Google it every time you got to do it, because that's a hassle. Okay, well, anyhow. So, you know, two things you really need to know here, two key things. You need to split absolute value quantities into two equations, okay? And when you multiply by a negative or divide by a negative, you've got to reverse the inequality. Of course, now you get 4 is less than or equal to negative 37 over 4, which is negative 9 1/4. So now you've got this, and you got maybe 0 here, and negative 9 here, and negative 10 here. And negative 9 1/4 is going to be about here. It's going to be included, so we're going to do a nice closed dot, and it's going to be everything to the left. In interval notation, the solution set is negative infinity, negative 9 1/4, or negative infinity, negative 37/4. Either is acceptable. Okay? So it's not that hard. If you remember those two things, you can do these things. And you will do them, I believe, correctly.